Call to order the Isle of Wight County Planning Commission meeting for May the 27th, 2025. I ask you at this time if you would join me for the invocation, please. Eternal God, our Father, we thank you this evening for allowing us to gather here at this place. We thank you for safe travel over the dangerous highways. We ask now that you would lead us in our discussion on this evening. The decisions that we make will be that which is pleasing in your sight and for the good of this county in which we live. Grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. As you all stand as we pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. May be seated. This time we have a roll call.
Bobby Bowser.
Present.
Brian Carroll.
Here.
James Ford.
Here.
Jennifer Boykin.
Here.
George Rawls.
Here.
Raynard Gibbs.
Here.
Matthew Smith.
Here.
Keith Johnson.
Here.
Brian Shotwell.
Here.
Chairman Hughes.
Thank you very much. I want to take the opportunity to welcome Mr. Shotwell to the Planning Commission who represents the Newport District. We are happy to have you with us today, and you sit in a great seat, the seat of Mr. DeStefano, and so welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Not going to ask for a speech until later.
Okay.
At this time, we would open the floor for the election of the vice chair in place of Mr. DeStefano, who was the vice chair. Is there a nomination or a motion for someone?
I nominate Mr. Ford.
I decline. I would like to nominate Mr. Smith, though.
I'll second. I didn't give you a chance to decline. That's how you do it.
One unanimous vote for Mr. Smith.
All right. That was a motion that you
Yes,
made,
sir.
right? Okay. Motion that we nominate Mr. Smith to be the vice chair. Are there any questions? All in-
I do. You're not taking off for the rest of this term, right?
Only for about 4 more months. I'm just kidding. No, no, sir.
We're good.
No other questions? All in favor of the said name, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any oppositions? Motion carried. Thank you for Mr. Smith for staying in that position. Are there any actions to be withdrawn or tabled, Ms. Ring?
No items this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda also? So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, we open the floor for citizens' comments. Anyone who's present this evening that would like to bring before the Planning Commission something that is not on our agenda, you can come forth now. Anyone present tonight? All right, thank you very much. There's no public hearings,
Correct.
correct? Okay, let's proceed to old business.
Application rezone 2411 of Charles Brown Jr. Properties LLC and Main Development LLC, property owners, and Allied Properties LLC, applicant to change the zoning district from conditional urban residential and conditional general commercial to conditional planned development mixed use of approximately 43 acres with tax map numbers 3401050 and 50D, located at 15020 Carrollton Boulevard, for 147 attached single-family homes and 1.5 acres of commercial development.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. My name is Amy Ring. I'm the county's Community Development Director. Tonight I'm presenting your old business item for the REZN 2411 Bridgepoint Commons Conditional Planned Mixed Use Zoning Request. The tax parcel numbers that are part of this application are 3401050 and 50D. It's located on the southwest corner of the intersection of Deep Bottom Drive and Carrollton Boulevard. It is currently zoned conditional urban residential and conditional general commercial for 350 residential units and about 8 acres of commercial. It's located in District 4, and the request is to change the zoning district to conditional plan development mixed use to allow for 147 townhomes and 1.5 acres of commercial space. As you recall, at your April 22nd, 2025 regular meeting, the Planning Commission had a public hearing for this item and then a discussion, after which they directed staff to seek additional information for several questions and continued your discussion until a future Planning Commission meeting, which was put on the schedule for tonight's meeting. In response to that direction, on May 7th, staff sent additional information on potential traffic impacts to the Planning Commission. Then on May 19th, staff sent additional information on the fiscal impact analysis. And then on May 20th, staff forwarded you all additional comments that were made from Isle of Wight County Schools on potential school impacts. Copies of all of these documents can be found online on your agenda package. On May 15th, the applicant submitted revised proffered conditions. The proposed changes include the following items. 1, they added strip clubs, vape stores, and drive-through restaurants and/or businesses as prohibited uses on the commercial parcel. They also added a proffer to conduct a Phase 1 level cultural resource analysis with the parameters recommended by the Phase 1A Cultural Resources Assessment. The applicant also submitted a revised conceptual master plan dated May 12, 2025, which removes the entrance sign shown in the required 70-foot setback adjacent to Carrollton Boulevard. These changes also necessarily impacted the weaknesses that were previously identified by staff. So the strengths did not change when the staff conducted our analysis of the application with the county's ordinances and plans. The proposed project is generally consistent with the future recommended land use designation. There is sufficient school, utility, public safety, and emergency medical service capacity to handle the additional service demands generated by the project. The proffered conditions include road improvements to address traffic impacts. The conceptual plan is generally consistent with ordinance requirements. The environmentally sensitive areas are located in permanently protected open space areas. And the project retains a small portion of non-residential commercial development, which will generate some employment opportunities and additional tax revenues. The weaknesses were partially rectified by the new proffered conditions. Britt Way and Ashby Way will see an increase in traffic along both residential roads when that connection is made. The proposed reduction in commercial space reduces non-residential revenues. However, there are less traffic impacts as a result of this. Based on the strengths listed above, staff recommends approval of the project with the proffered conditions. This hasn't changed since the last meeting. And I had a new master plan copy available at one point. However, that is attached to your staff report as well. And I can pull that up online if you all would like to take a further look at it. But I also wanted to let you know that our transportation manager, as well as VDOT staff, are here this evening if you have any transportation-related questions. We also have the applicant here available to answer any questions as well.
That's all we get, Ms. Rain? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Is there comments from the commissioners? Would you like to hear from the applicant?
I'd like to give for questions. Let me first say that, to me, the overall proposed development of the townhouses, looks good. It seems to offer more affordable housing, which we probably need more of. And it has open spaces, walkways and playgrounds, all that looks good. But my concerns really are more related to the traffic impact. And so I got several questions. So partly as being a new member of the Planning Commission, I've got maybe some extra questions, but I'm trying to understand the regulations and some of the safety issues. So the first area I'd like to ask about is consideration of bicycles and pedestrians. So, you know, Ashby, Brittway, currently, it's, you know, it's a cul-de-sac. There's parking not allowed on the side of that road. There's no sidewalks. So people that walk, they're walking in the roads, they're walking with their dogs, they're riding bicycles. So, and the traffic impact analysis shows that, or estimates an increase of about 400 vehicles per day going down Brittway. So to me, that raises a concern about pedestrians and bicycles. And that, looking at the traffic impact analysis regulations, pedestrians and bicycles are mentioned in several places, and nothing is mentioned in the impact statement. So I guess my question is, were, you know, bicycle use and pedestrians considered as part of the impact? Or should it be?
So typically, the traffic impact analysis, and I don't want to speak out of turn, I'm looking to my VDOT and transportation friends back there, if they could jump in. The TIA does not address bike use, it's, you know, and pedestrian use. It's considered a residential street based on the volume of traffic and the number of units that it serves. However, the impacts to bike traffic or pedestrian traffic is not typically part of a traffic impact analysis.
So while this is definitely an increase over what the existing traffic volumes are, this is not a volume that would be atypical to a standard residential neighborhood. So if you're looking at, for example, the existing Eagle Harbor neighborhood or the existing Ben's Grant neighborhood, et cetera, this is an increase over what's there now, but this is not a significant increase over what any other typical neighborhood street volume would be. And it's still gonna be 25 miles an hour. So your TIA would look at things that would impact your traffic volumes as far as whether or not you have a bike or pedestrian, like a crossing. If you're having a push button pedestrian crossing that impacts your signal operation, if you're putting in a crosswalk, that sort of thing, but you don't have those features happening at these locations, so your TIA is not going to account for those. So since you're not changing your actual street layout, you're not changing your speeds, and you're not adding any pedestrian features as far as crossings, then it's not going to show up in your TIA for this particular use. That's why you're not seeing them specified in the TIA itself
Okay.
at this point in development.
Can you also just, Jamie, give us your name for the records?
Sure, Jamie Oliver, Transportation Administrator for the county.
All right, thank you.
So even though the traffic impact analysis typically wouldn't include it, but it seems like in this case, maybe it should with an existing neighborhood that has different, you know, patterns of pedestrians and bicycles, seems like that ought to be looked at.
So nothing that so I mean, they could put narrative information in the TIA for it, but there's nothing that this development is doing that would change impact-wise. So they could certainly add something in the TIA, but it would be narrative. There's nothing numerically that would change.
Well, it does impact it when you're adding 400 vehicles on Brittway.
So, I mean, you could certainly go back and ask them to narratively address it, but there's no infrastructure or engineering impact from bicycles or pedestrians, because
Yeah.
you could certainly request that they address it from a narrative perspective, but you're not adding crosswalks, you're not adding pedestrian infrastructure. You're not proposing push-button pedestrian signals that would impact
Yeah.
any other signals
Yeah.
or that sort of thing from an engineering perspective that
Well-
would impact your TIA.
My concern is not from the engineer's perspective, it's more of the human factor perspective,
So the
where you got
human,
people walking and kids playing.
so that's more of a land use perspective. The TIA is much more of an engineering
All right,
perspective.
so, okay. I guess another regulation I was looking at, or actually guidance, the VDOT traffic calming guide. Just starting to get a little familiar with that. I don't think that's been considered at this point. Maybe that comes into play later on if there are issues. Traffic calming measures could be applied.
So normally, traffic calming would be something that you're looking at in a design perspective. Hopefully you do that kind of upfront. I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for, as far as traffic calming
Well,
goes.
the traffic calming guidelines are there to help avoid situations where you have potentially safety hazards, either from vehicles or pedestrians, and then measures can be taken to minimize those potential issues.
Right, so I guess I'm not sure how you were imagining the TIA would address
No,
it.
I'm just saying, I just looked at that from reviewing it. It could be something that could be considered in the future if measures are needed. And it also says that if measures are needed, the county has to fund those.
That would be if they're a retrofit situation.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I guess another area of concern I have is with the U-turns. So the traffic impact study shows that it's going to generate U-turns. Specifically, it shows U-turns occurring at the intersection of Carrollton Boulevard and Ashby Way, O'Meara. There's a traffic signal there, so I'm not as concerned about that. But it also shows U-turns occurring at the intersection of Deep Bottom and Channel Way. And it estimates at peak hours, it shows 41 U-turns during peak hour. And that probably relates to 300 or 400 per day at that intersection with no stoplight. So my concern there is U-turns and a highway at 55 mile per hour speed limits, heavy traffic. Does VDOT have any information that they look at that or consider potential hazards with U-turns?
Sure, I'm gonna go ahead and defer that one to VDOT since they're here.
Good evening, my name is Jason Fowler, I work out of the Franklin Residency, Hampton Roads District. As far as U-turns, U-turns are considered, a practical measure to actually, a safe measure that reduces the crossing and eliminates conflict points. As far as the 55 miles an hour and the gaps, that was taken care of in the synchro analysis, and the analysis indicated that there was proper gaps to perform those U-turns at that intersection. If you didn't have, drivers are gonna go where it's easier for them. If they find that intersection is not convenient for a U-turn, they'll go to the next intersection and do another U-turn at the protected U-turn spot.
Okay, I would still think there's some potential hazards with people making U-turns in, heavy traffic or attempting to, taking chances, trying to cut across. I've seen that happen, even with these flashing left turn yellow signals. Got a few close calls myself. So are you familiar with the Sugar Hill 17 intersection? So at that intersection, my understanding there's been some accidents there, and not too long ago, a no U-turn sign was installed there. Do you know why that was installed?
I can check on it. Why the U-turn sign was installed?
U-turn-
Was it,
the
did they
no
have
U-
accidents? I'm not sure.
So the new U-turn sign has actually been there for quite a while. They reinstalled it because it was knocked down in the last accident. The new U-turn signs have been there because there's not enough radius for large vehicles to make U-turns there.
Well, that's my same concern with new U-turns being generated at Deep Bottom Way. I think it is a potential for more accidents, especially when you have vehicles, larger trucks, cars with trailers, and hopefully the school buses will not have to make U-turns there. I think that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I don't think there's any intention for school buses to make U-turns
Yeah,
under
let's
this traffic
hope not,
scenario.
but in general, I think there's potential for more accidents in it because of that.
Anytime you increase the traffic, you're gonna have more potential for accidents.
Yeah, but there may be alternatives that need to be looked at. So again, a lot of these questions because I'm trying to learn and understand these regulations. So looking at the traffic impact analysis, it used a traffic growth rate of 2%. And looking at the recent analysis study that was done for the fiscal impact analysis of growth for Alawite County, I think that was completed a month or two ago. And they looked at like 1%, 2%, and 3% population growth rates. So 2% is probably a good number for the county, but that's a county average. To me, the growth is going to highly skew to the northern end of the county. So the 2%, if you run the numbers, I think it's much more than 2%.
It's not necessarily the population growth. I mean, we've got historical trends, and that 2% is actually probably pretty conservative. I think that corridor is running like between 1.5% and 2% maybe.
I'm not sure if I understand that. If you look at the growth that's going to happen in the north end.
So the methodology for using a growth rate on the TIA, there's a couple different methodologies that you can use. And one would be a background growth rate plus adding on additional developments for what you know is already approved or in the pipeline, or to use an overall growth rate which accounts for that without trying to pinpoint additional development. So you could use, for example, a 1.25% growth rate of what we've had in the past, and then you would also add Sweetgrass plus Ben's Grant plus Riverside plus whatever, and you try to pinpoint all of those individual things. And do you account for things that are only approved or things that are already approved plus applied for, you know, where do you draw the line? So what we tend to do is pick an overall growth rate of, for example, 2%, which kind of captures the background growth rate plus all of the things in the pipeline as kind of a universal. The idea is that it's a universal growth rate which tries to capture all of those things consecutively, and it's something that we apply across the board for the county so that there's some consistency across what we're reviewing over a certain time period.
I still think the 2% is too low. So if you look at the fiscal impact analysis report presented last month, they estimate the county's going to grow by 9,000 population in 10 years. Almost all that growth is along the 17 corridor, and people are going to be using that corridor. Right now, the population in Carrollton is about 7,900. So to me, if you kind of estimate, it's going to be a lot more 2% growth in traffic volume on Route 17.
So the population growth is, and fiscal growth is a little bit different than traffic growth as well, because background traffic growth is not necessarily the people that live here. It's all the growth that comes through the county as well.
So that's another part of it that has to be considered.
Well, so it's, but it's not, we have found that the 2% seems to work so far over the last handful of years.
But last handful of years, we don't have 3,000 new units being developed or being approved, some additional being considered over the next 5 to 10 years. So I don't want to push, make too much of an issue, but I just think the value of 2% should be looked at a little closer, is all I'm saying.
I just know that when we typically have our TIA meetings, like before a project even starts, they're required to meet with VDOT and staff to talk about what intersections and roadways that they need to include in their TIA. And we always look at historically what the growth trends have been for traffic along that, whatever particular roadway they happen to be studying. And the 2% actually is usually over and above what the actual growth rate in the traffic numbers we're seeing. I know it sounds strange, but, these are traffic counts that we do every couple of years.
And so you're doing actual traffic count, so you're including all that through traffic that's going across the
Yes.
bridge to get to northern Suffolk and all of
Average
that.
vehicles per day, yeah.
Correct. I mean, I think it's important to realize too that your background growth is compounding as well, so.
I'm like him, I think 2% seems low.
Yeah,
Not to say
I
that it's
just
not
bring it up
accurate,
to
but
something
just
to maybe
seems
look
low.
at and really look at. It's not the 2% growth rate of the county necessarily, it's the growth rate in the northern end of the county and along 17 and all the developments that needs to be considered. We all know, I drove across the bridge for 40 years. Fortunately, I retired recently, I don't have to do it anymore, but it's getting worse and worse. Everybody knows that. It's going to accelerate.
Okay. Kenny, after you come up, you had your hand up right there.
Oh, I did. It's kind of irrelevant now, but.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I had one question, and probably for Jason or Jamie, either one. Just for clarity, after we got our packet and saw the plats, I just want to be clear that Britway is a connection regardless of this downzoning or not. And can you tell me whether this body has any effect on that or not?
Britway is what's considered a stub street platted all the way to the property line. So it is public right-of-way platted all the way to the property line.
And also, per the VDOT ordinance, you're required to connect to that stub out if it's there as part of the subdivision, if VDOT is going to take into the streets as far as for maintenance.
So just for clarity, this entity really has no control over whether this development or the already approved development connects to Britway.
Correct, if the streets are going to be maintained by VDOT.
Then the adjacent developer would need to connect.
And it's also in the county subdivision ordinance that.
They would have to connect.
Required to connect.
Here's subdivision with an existing connection already in place that they have to connect to.
That's what I understood from the packet.
Mr. Rangos, Mark Rangos emailed us, and he talked about the connection. He referenced just a question about whether or not we could, this could connect to come in behind Fat Boys, that area, because there was an emergency light there at the fire station. And if there was a way to turn that light into a regular stoplight, I don't know if that's, I mean, I thought it was kind of a good question. I didn't know if there were, instead of going down, you know, cutting into Britway, if you could reroute that second connection.
There is not a way to create a new signal at that location.
Well, I think the location was not in front of the fire department, it's in front of this Fat Boys crossover. Is that what you're saying?
He said it would it be a way to connect this development to that parking lot,
Yeah.
or, you know, extend it so that they cut it in through there and not through Britway?
Yeah, and I think the suggestion was the light would be at the crossover in front of Fat Boys. But you're saying there's, a light cannot be put there?
Correct.
And why?
This is the arterial preservation network, and there are certain requirements for spacing for signals, and that wouldn't meet the spacing requirements.
Just for some clarity too, that would require then that parking lot to be taken over by VDOT and maintained as a thoroughfare, correct? Because that's private at this point, right?
Yes, and that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. So there's the challenges that would be with that process as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we need to hear from the applicant again? Anybody? Okay. What's the pleasure of the commission? They all speak at the same time.
Well, while I appreciate the fact that they've downsized the development, I still have major concerns with the traffic and everything, so I'll make a motion that we deny the application.
Is there a second?
I'd second it.
All right, there's a motion. Can we have a roll call, Amanda?
Jennifer Boykin,
Yes.
James Ford,
No.
George Rawls,
Yes.
Raynard Gibbs,
No.
Matthew Smith,
No.
Keith Johnson,
Yes.
Brian Carroll,
No.
Brian Shotwell,
No.
Bobby Bowser.
No.
Motion failed.
Okay.
This will go to the Board of Supervisors on July 10th. Because they moved their June meeting, we can't make it, so it'll be July 10th.
County attorney with the motion failed.
Is The motion
Oh,
failed.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're
Yeah, I'm sorry.
a little ahead of
I'm
us
sorry.
right now. Is there another motion?
I think, Mr. Chairman, it's important to remember that this piece of property is already approved for a project with considerably greater traffic, and while this Britway discussion is certainly pertinent, it's not the purview of this board. I mean, it's not in our realm of what we do, unfortunately. That connection's gonna happen at this level, or it's gonna happen at a much substantial level, if I understand what staff is telling me.
So currently, they have approval for 350 condominiums and a multifamily apartment building. So it's considered a one-site user,
Already approved.
already approved, and they do have a proffered condition that they can dedicate right away to the county for future connection to Britway.
But
The
that
county could-
approved project will still connect to Britway.
So and I'm gonna kind of get Jason to help me out, but because it's a single-user site, it doesn't quite have the same requirements as
Right, well,
a
VDOT
subdivision.
VDOT will maintain the roads.
Can you come into the mic so they can pick you up?
VDOT wouldn't, under the current zoning, VDOT would not maintain the roads within that subdivision without it connecting to Britway. That was approved under the 2008 subdivision ordinance, which didn't require did not require multiple connections. And so you would just have the entrance itself, and so that would not be, it was commercial, most of it's commercial, and the townhomes wouldn't be VDOT maintained. So what they're proposing are VDOT maintained streets, which requires a connection.
Okay.
I'm a little
But it-
unclear after that.
But it could connect, because the Britway is available to connect.
It could connect per the county's, I mean, if they dedicate the right of way, she's correct, that was in the proffers. And the county would have to, and somebody else, I guess, would have to pay for the street to connect, because their current concept plan doesn't connect that road to Britway.
It had another exit out on Deep Bottom, correct?
It did have an XL deep bottom.
All right, thank you. Okay, guys.
I guess I'm, just to have some clarity for myself. If we deny this application, there is an application that's already been approved, or a site that's already been approved that will have a larger impact on 17 in regards to the number of units that are potentially could come if that builder or that developer wanted to develop what's already been approved. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
So the developer has the ability to develop 350 units by right.
But it also, the original plan also increases the commercial aspect of it
It
too.
does, up to 75,000 square feet, I believe is what the concept.
And that there would not be a connection to Britway.
There would not be, well, unless the county installed a public road on the property, they could make that connection, or would be required to make that connection.
But right now, as it stands.
Right.
It would not.
There's no public road shown on the concept plan. That would connect.
Would VDOT have, if that application came forward now, would VDOT have input in regards to if it needed to connect even though it was previously approved?
So VDOT, go ahead, sorry.
Again, that concept was approved in 2008.
Right.
The regulations have changed since then.
Sure.
So any change to the site plan would have a re-review, and so we would look to actually require that connection. Because that connection wasn't required, and the access management regulations changed in 2011.
Right.
But right now, if there were no changes, that site plan is grandfathered in. Okay.
It's a concept plan.
Right, the concept plan is grandfathered in if the county wishes to move forward with it.
But it still would impact Route 17. at a higher number than what we're currently looking at. And I'm gonna make a recommendation that we accept this as it's been proposed.
Second. All right. Roll call, Amanda.
Boykin? Jennifer
No,
Boykin?
no.
James Ford?
Yes.
George Pauls?
Yeah.
Brainerd Gibbs?
Yes.
Matthew Smith?
Yes.
Keith Johnson?
No.
Brian Carroll?
Yes.
Brian Shotwell?
Yes.
Bobby Bowser?
Yes. Now this
Motion
one.
passed.
July 10th.
So go to the board for that July 10th meeting. All right? Thank you. Let's now make our way now to new business. Just take a moment, please. Hold on for a second.
Our job is planning, it's not traffic. We downsized 400 houses to 180. We did our job.
We ain't gonna be love everything. They don't understand that. They're just looking at where they live right now. They see numbers. Of course, things are going to, traffic are gonna get a little bit worse. I mean, it has to. Okay, we ready, everybody? Let's go to, new business. Amanda, can you read the application, please?
Application EXC 25-2 of William Burdick, applicant Star Caviar LLC, property owners for a waiver to section 1.91 of the subdivision ordinance to allow for a subdivision of the existing parcel 3301166A, which would result in the creation of a non-conforming parcel that does not meet bulk regulation requirements in the limited industrial zoning district.
Thank you, Amanda. Good evening, everybody. My name is Caleb Kitchen. I'm with the county's planning and zoning staff. This application under the new business section of your agenda, as she mentioned, is a waiver request specific to section 1.9.1 of the subdivision ordinance that prohibits the creation of a non-conforming lot. This is in reference to tax map ID 3301-166A, specifically located at 21301 Brewers Neck Boulevard. The current zoning is conditional limited industrial, and it's located in election district number 2. A little bit of history on the parcel. The property in its current form was rezoned in 1982 from our old A1 to B1, which was our agricultural to business districts, and subsequently rezoned again in 1983 from B1 to conditional M1, which was our business to our industrial and limited industrial district in today's terms, to allow for motor vehicle repair service, major activities, and part of the proffered conditions from that 1983 rezoning was that the parcel would retain uses also permitted in the previous general commercial district, which included things like mini warehouse and motor vehicle repair service major. In addition, over time, the property has been granted variances by the Board of Zoning Appeals, most recently in 2000 to allow a chain link fence there along the highway, what was then the Highway Corridor Overlay District, I believe, and then previously in 1997 to allow the sale of motor vehicles 10 feet off of the property line. The current owner purchased the property last year, and looking at the property, if you were to do the proposed subdivision, the motor vehicle repair portion would be 1.8 acres and the mini warehouse portion would be 1.7 acres. Those two sections at the top there related to maximum lot coverage and minimum open space ratios is found in the bulk regulations of the zoning ordinance as it relates to the limited industrial zoning district. Completing the proposed subdivision, in this case, the mini warehouse parcel would meet those requirements. However, the auto repair parcel would not meet them, having lot coverage at 88% and then the minimum open space ratio at 12%. This shows the site. It is surrounded by public right-of-way, Slant Drive, Norsworthy, and Brewers Neck. There are residential properties there to the north agricultural, and then you have the planned development, mixed-use project over here across the corner. This is the current zoning map. You can see limited industrial adjacent to the planned development mixed-use zoning, and rural agricultural conservation as well, the ones that aren't colored. Future land use designation is business and employment, suburban estate to the north, and then the mixed-use development has been identified. This is a concept plan of the proposed subdivision. You can see the line that would be established right here. There is 23.7 feet between the largest mini warehouse building and the edge of the auto shop. In the NDSO, the required side setbacks is 10 feet on each side of the property line. And so the line here is placed right at the 10-foot marker between the proposed property line and the mini warehouse building there. This is the property looking at towards the property from the intersection there, turning left onto Norsworthy. This is looking towards the rear of the parcel from Slant Drive. This is the commercial entrance onto the 24/7 storage portion of the property on Slant Drive. And that's looking at the corner of Slant Drive and Brewer's Neck back onto the property. This is just a photo showing where that proposed boundary line would be down the alleyway between the two uses. Looking at the comprehensive plan, the future land use designation is business and employment from the 2020 comprehensive plan. Appropriate uses can be things like medical offices, retail services, light manufacturing, and low-intensity industrial uses. Some non-residential can include parks and trails and existing community facilities. This is the specific section of the subdivision ordinance that they are requesting a waiver from. It states all land development activity within the county shall comply with the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, E&S control ordinance, any master water and sewer ordinance, the Chesapeake Bay ordinance, and all other local, Commonwealth, or federal regulations. The subdivision ordinance stipulates specific criteria that the applicants are supposed to meet in order to be granted a waiver from any particular section of the ordinance. I'll walk through those really briefly and tell you what staff's finding was as it relates to this project. Criteria number one is that the granting the waiver would not have an adverse impact on land use capability. Staff finds that the proposed subdivision does not change the underlying mini warehouse and motor vehicle repair service uses that currently exist on the property or the existing zoning district. Number two, the second criteria is that strict adherence to the general regulations would result in substantial injustice or hardship. And staff does not find a hardship as the current uses established on the property can continue to operate under the current zoning regulations and previously approved variances, and the property was acquired in good faith last year. The third criteria is that the waiver has not been opposed in writing by the county, VDOT, or the health department. The waiver was not opposed by VDOT in their comments, and it does not utilize private well or sewer as it relates to the health department. The fourth criteria is that granting the waiver needs to be consistent with the purposes and intent of the ordinance. And staff finds that the proposed subdivision is not consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, which is to promote the orderly development of the county. We did send it to VDOT, as I mentioned. They did not oppose the subdivision, but they did note that any substantial rezoning or change in use or major site plan changes would trigger the required closure of their entrance that exists off of Brewer's Neck Road due to spacing requirements. Staff's analysis of the application is one that the existing strengths is that the existing mini warehouse and motor vehicle repair service that are currently established on the property, they're not anticipated to change and are generally consistent with the comprehensive plan designation. The weaknesses are that granting this waiver will result in the creation of a non-conforming lot that does not meet those bulk regulations that are stipulated in the limited industrial zoning district. And secondly, the strict application of the ordinance does not unreasonably restrict the utilization of the parcel in its current form. So taking these strengths and weaknesses into consideration, staff does recommend denial based off of the weaknesses and the fact that the applicant in staff's review, does not meet the criteria that I listed a minute ago. Mr. Riddick is here to represent the applicant, and I'll be here as well. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Caleb. Mr. Riddick, you want to come forward?
Okay. Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, my name is William Riddick, and I represent the applicant. This property was formerly Knox Automotive, and Johnny and Ann Knox went there in 1983 based on the kitchen's information, which was before I even got here. And they built a very fine business, and they're good business people. They started with the auto shop. And I would point out that at every stage, they complied with the zoning ordinance that were in effect at the time. But those ordinances have, as you well know, have evolved, and they've become more and more strict. And this, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they just have. And then we have the overlay districts that have been applied. And so the ordinances have evolved, but at all times, the Knoxes were in compliance. They built their project in accordance with the laws that were in effect when they took on each phase. So they had the auto shop first, and then they built the dry storage. And that made a lot of sense for a long time because they were good people, good business people, and they were there every day, and they could, you know, oversee both businesses. But, you know, they probably thought they'd be there forever, but they've retired and sold their property. Well, a new purchaser has bought that, and it's not Knox Automotive anymore. It's another company. I'm sure you've seen the sign. I think there was an issue about the sign, but it's been resolved by zoning. And so really, it's two distinct businesses. There's the dry storage and the automotive, and they really don't have anything to do with each other. And so the logical thing to do is to divide these properties. And of course, had they thought about it, or had they had a crystal ball, they might have designed their project a little bit differently and done things differently when they built the auto shop. But they didn't need to because they were in compliance at the time. And I appreciate the analysis that staff has about this, but I would suggest that the hardship is that they are being asked to comply with today's ordinances based on criteria that you want to apply now, but did not apply when they built their auto shop. And the auto shop is the parcel that's not in compliance. If this is denied, nothing changes. Everything is exactly the same. Nobody has to tear anything down. The physical nature of the auto shop is not going to be any different than it today as it will be tomorrow. It's just, you know, it's a reason, and I'm not saying it's not a legitimate reason, but it's a reason to say no. But I would suggest to you that there's a provision in your ordinance that allows you to grant a waiver. And at some point in time, I think you have to apply common sense, and I would suggest that this is a really good time to do that. If you say no, then nothing changes. But if you say yes, then they can draw an imaginary line that will divide one parcel from the other. Nobody is going to be adversely affected by that, but it would allow the dry storage business to operate separately from the automotive shop. And the net result will be that the county will derive greater tax revenue, because I assure you that when they assess the two parcels separately, the tax assessments on each parcel is going to go up. And so I would suggest that this is a business-friendly thing to do. I know it's a technical reason, and that's, you know, the staff is doing their job, but I would suggest that this is a fine opportunity to apply a little common sense, grant the waiver that is permitted under your ordinance. You're not doing anything that you can't, that you're not supposed to do. There's criteria that permit this, and I think that you can, the analysis would say that we have met the checklist of things that you should consider, and then I would recommend that you recommend this to the Board of Supervisors for approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Riddick. Commissioners?
I do have one question, I guess for clarification. The owners, it's 24/7 storage at that location. I guess they're renting that property from the current owner, or leasing it?
That's what I understand, and I'm not Mr. Johnson, I'm not familiar with all their business, how they are operating on that, but I know that there's two separate businesses going on there.
That-
Of course, and you raise an issue, it presents, from a business standpoint, it presents financing problems for, if you own this, you can borrow money against this, and if you own this, you can borrow money against this, but if you don't, it causes problems.
And is that you, I guess, owner of the storage business, the same one that just built a new storage facility on 17, 24/7? Is that the same?
Mr. Sawyer.
Mr. Sawyer, I don't know if he's operating there or not, he didn't,
I'm not just.
Has the same sign.
go away, but there's probably a good deduction that that's the same, so I expect it is. Mr. Sawyer's, he's in the storage business and has been for quite some time.
Yeah.
And if that's him, I expect he probably wants to buy it instead of leasing it.
I'd be curious to know, so the one person who purchased this last year purchased everything, the
Yeah,
whole.
yeah.
So they went into it knowing that they had the storage business and the auto business
They did.
on this, okay. I'd like to know if they are in fact owned by two different people.
No, it's one, you mean the.
The storage, yeah, you're saying that Mr. Sawyer owns the storage business.
I'm not saying that, I don't know that. I know
Oh.
that
Am I
Mr.
missing
Sawyer
something?
Mr. Sawyer doesn't operate the body shop.
Yeah, because it looks like a company out of
Yeah,
Florida owns
right.
it,
That's
okay.
Yeah, that's a new, up until the last several months, it was still Knox, I believe, and then they.
Classic Collision, yeah.
Classic Collision, that's right.
I have a question.
The last
What's the
time-
relevance, one question, what's the relevance of who's the owner? That's not what's before us, right? What's before us is that.
Correct. I would just say that the owner purchased the property in its entirety, and my understanding is he contracts the management of those two
Right.
different businesses out
Okay.
on the property.
And I think he thought that he had, if you draw the line down the middle, you can meet the setbacks, but then you have this coverage issue that's imposed. That's a highway corridor requirement, is it not?
No, that's.
It's just a general zoning
Yeah, that's
issue?
the LI zoning.
Well, so I would suggest that probably wasn't in existence in 1983. I would stake my,
83?
that's when they first rezoned this property for the automotive shop.
Right.
Agricultural business.
Access to the storage facility gonna still be off Slant Drive and Brewers Neck?
I think everything's gonna stay exactly like it is.
Yeah, I don't think you can get to it off Brewers
No,
now.
you have to come.
All off Slant Drive.
Right. I don't think yeah.
But that raises another question, if this is rezoned subdivision. You mentioned, you could not use that entrance off of Brewer's Neck.
So that's only if substantial improvements were made to the property or a future rezoning. That would be one of VDOT's comments, that entrance be closed.
But they're not making.
This subdivision does not trigger that need.
Right, yeah.
But it would come into play if they decided to build something, I guess.
I think they're out of room for building anything.
Well, I mean, you could tear it down.
Well,
If they were to go and alter more than a certain percentage of the buildings that are already there, or the lot coverages is already there, they would have to submit a preliminary site plan. And that would be one of staff's comments, is that it's already met its maximum lot coverage. And any relief from that from that specific regulation in the zoning ordinance as it relates to developing the site further, would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and meet their criteria that they have to, have for their variances.
they clearly maximized everything, but they did it in compliance with the rules that were in effect at the time they did it.
Such a well-worn group tonight. Any more questions for Attorney Riddick? Anybody? All right, what's the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chair, if I'm in time, I would like to recommend that we grant the waiver for the project here.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please, Amanda.
Jennifer Boykin,
No.
James Ford,
Yes.
George Ross,
No.
Raynard Gibbs,
Yes.
Matthew Smith,
Yes.
Keith Johnson,
Yes.
Brian Carroll,
Yes.
Brian Shotwell,
Yes.
Bobby Bowser.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. July 10th, right?
July 10th.
Okay. Is there a county report this evening?
Yes, sir.
Sure, Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's move to the planning director's report.
Okay. I have one item for you tonight, and that is to initiate a discussion of revisions to the sign ordinance. So as you recall, August 1st of last year, the Board of Supervisors directed staff and the Planning Commission to review the sign regulations for possible revisions after considering input from a community input survey. The board also asked for a report on the number and type of sign violations the county encountered over the past year. We did get that report, and since August of 2024, the code enforcement officer has a record of 21 sign violations. Most of these violations include signs installed without permits and temporary signs that have been up too long. We conducted the sign survey from March 11, 2025 until May 1, 2025. We received 62 responses. We utilized survey feedback as well as issues experienced in administering and enforcing the sign regulations to draft the changes. The survey respondents felt that public safety and community appearance were the most important issues for sign regulations. Responses indicated that sign size, flashing or digital signs, and the number of temporary signs were the most important issues to update. Staff feels temporary sign time limits, colors, materials, and shopping center signs are the most problematic to administer. So that is the end of my PowerPoint, and I'd like to go ahead and bring up the sign survey results to show you the responses that we did get. Oop, come back. So the first question on the survey was, are you a resident, property owner, or business owner in the county? And as you can see by the bar chart, that the most people that answered were actually property owners, and they could be business owners too, or renters. We were just trying to get an idea of who was answering the survey. The property owners were the most responses with 88%. Business owners were answering were 35%, and renters 6% of the total responses. The next question is, are you happy or unhappy with how signs are regulated in the county? And as you can see, most people were neutral about it. The unhappy responses outweighed the happy responses by about 1 percentage point. Unhappy people were 27.8%. Happy people were 26.2% of the total responses. The next question is, what do you think is the most important reason to regulate signage in the county? Most people felt the appearance of the community was the most important reason. Public safety concerns were the next biggest reason. And then think it's important so that all businesses are treated equally came in third. And then we actually had 9.7% of the people who felt like that we shouldn't regulate signs at all. The fourth question was, please choose a response. Do you feel the sign regulations in the county are just right, not strict enough, or they could be updated? And as you can see by the bar chart, most people felt that they could be updated. Next question was, how many signs on the property or on a building do you think are appropriate for commercial use? Most people felt that 1 to 2 signs was about right. 1 sign on a building and 1 street sign, which didn't include window signs. The next largest response is that they felt like 3 to 4 signs was a good number, such as 2 signs on a building, a street sign, not including window signs. 17.7%, or about 18% of the respondents felt that we shouldn't have any limits on signage. And then we asked people, where do you think we should allow people to attach signs? Most people felt that walls was okay at 71%. Parking lots, which are just freestanding signs, would be okay at 66%. There was a tie between portable sandwich board signs or chalkboards on sidewalks and window signs came in at number 3. And the 4th most popular choice was attached to poles. We did have several open-ended questions too, and I'll get to those in just a moment. Number 7 was 1. It says, do you have suggestions for sign requirements from other jurisdictions that would work for the county? Really didn't get a whole lot of responses to that one. Some people felt like that we shouldn't be using any localities as examples. One person suggested York County. So as you see in the table that I sent you all with your staff report, York County was one of the ones that I compared ourselves to. And some felt that size should be based on the square foot of the building. Other more kind of general comments for that question were, avoid huge and ugly signs. Focus more on quality versus quantity, permanent signage versus flags. Allow any signage on the property that is permanent. And just basically kind of complaints with regard to temporary signs. And some people felt like that we shouldn't have, again, repeated that we shouldn't have any sign requirements in the county. So the question 8 was, what part of the sign regulations is most important to update? The first one, the one that was ranked number 1 was size of signs. The second one was number and type of temporary signs. And then there was a tie between we should regulate electronic or flashing or digital signs and no updates are needed. And then the last question was, please tell us anything else you would like to change about the signs or the sign ordinance. And most people felt like there was a lot of comments, the ones that we did get, about limiting flag signs or limiting temporary signs. That they shouldn't be permanently installed, and there was one comment that said we shouldn't require permits for them. Flashing signs are not necessary for safety. They detract from the aesthetic appeal of the area. Things taped to windows look junky. Again, avoid huge and ugly. And extremely bright LEDs are an eyesore. So those are kind of some of the comments that we got from the survey. And so based on our experience administering the ordinance as well as the feedback that we received, we developed our own set of draft sign ordinance revisions just to kind of begin the discussion with you all to see how you felt about it. And we did send out a draft of some revisions that were as a red line version. Basically anything that we wanted to put in, we highlighted in red and underlined it. Anything we thought needed to be taken out, we struck through it. So I'll go over those real quick. I'll leave the lights off. I think I can see it.
Quick question while you're doing that.
Sure.
What was the deal with the sign at Camel Chapel Church?
So the sign, the electronic sign that they put in?
Yes.
So the sign, the new sign that they wanted to put in, because it was grandfathered where it was, when they remove it completely and install a new one, they actually have to meet the current setbacks. So based on the 50-foot square foot sign that they wanted to put in, they had to be at least 35 feet from the road, or the edge of the right-of-way. And where they the 35-foot point was actually gonna be in the middle of their horseshoe driveway. They didn't wanna put it in the middle of the driveway, so they moved it back to where its location is now.
Okay, another thought then, because it seemed to me something really went wrong. Because they put the sign there, and then evidently something happened, and could they stop using it? Was
Oh,
that
it
something with the
wasn't working
county?
for a while.
That's what it was?
Yeah,
Oh,
They had to
okay,
have it repaired.
the pastor installed it.
that was the problem.
I'm being, not being facetious, I'm being serious, yeah.
Okay, man,
And so he got it repaired, and now that's why it's working now.
it's working now. They call you to come down and fix it, right?
No, that's not my expertise. But, they could have. They called me, I would've called you.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. So the first set of revisions that staff proposed actually has to do with the permitted signs in the ordinance. And we really have had a time with temporary signs. The ordinance, as it was changed a couple of years ago, as you recall, allowed people to put up to 2 flags per business or a banner up to 24 square feet and keep it up for 30 days, then take it down for 30 days. Then they could put it up for 30 days, but then they had to take it down for 30 days. And trying to track how many days they've actually been up and actually they've been down is problematic. If the intent was not to be able to make it enforceable at all, it succeeded. So the only time that we can really enforce it is when somebody obviously has had it up all year long, and it's obvious that they've exceeded the 30-day time limit, and then we can make them take it down. So that, I don't know if there is a good answer for that. A lot of the localities we looked at had a 90-day limit on it, period. And they allowed people to keep them up for no more than 90 days per year. Again, that can also be problematic because you gotta, you know, figure out a start date and when it started happening and then track it from there, so.
I guess, Ms. Ring, the problem that I think we actually said some years ago about that was that we didn't have the personnel
Right.
to track that,
Correct.
keep up with that.
I think somebody under the sign survey results said wonderfully able to do no good to alter the sign ordinance without an education and enforcement plan. So,
Well, I think they meant well in what they were doing, but at the end of the day, it's still a human to go out there and actually do that.
Right. Right.
Sounds like a good job for me, Brother Ford.
So we tried to simplify it a little bit and make it more in keeping with other localities by putting a 90-day time limit instead of having it fluctuate every 30 days. Some localities allowed for you to have 2 flag signs, period, and you could keep them up as long as they were permanently affixed. So, you know, if that is something you all would like to consider, we could allow up to 2 flag signs to be permitted as permanent signage on a piece of property. And then, of course, the banner, if you felt like 90 days was too restrictive, we could look at a longer time period as well, or a shorter time period.
So is that 90 consistent days, or is that 30 here, 30 there, and 30? Just asking.
Yeah, I thought it was some time in between, because the example that was given was, okay, we can take it down for a day or two and then put it right back up.
Right.
You start working.
So we did add calendar year in there, so if they decided to keep it up and
Right.
take it down, and you were to successfully track how many days they actually had it up in total, you say, okay, well, that's it for the year, don't, you know, kind of gets away from the having to set, you know, taking it down for 2 days and putting it right back up, so
It's still hard to track
It
for
is.
anybody.
it is.
And once again, I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, the major problem area was in the northern end of the county. whether development on 17, perhaps. I don't know if there's something different we need to do because of that area and the uniqueness of that in terms of expected development. I mean, because these issues are going to come back to us, continue to come back to us, because we haven't solved the problems that, and like she just said about, something that's effective and, enforceable. And, appreciate the work you guys are doing, but if we're just moving things around, to try to make it work, I mean, we need some probably concrete changes that would be substantive enough to kind of really address the problem, from a logical perspective, a common sense perspective on this thing. But what's missing here, and you can't really put that in your ordinance, business owners need to have some, integrity regarding the signs and how they use these temporary signs and all of that thing. And I don't think that's happening with everyone. I'm not saying that, any particular, but we did look at a couple businesses that, pushed the limit on that.
So I know banner signs is another example where I saw examples of very specific installation requirements. If you could have a banner sign in addition to your other allowable building freestanding signs permanently, if you wanted. There was no regulations on when you had to put it up or when you had to take it down. But when you put it up, it was limited to a certain height, a certain size, and a certain way that you had to install it, so they had to be in good repair. So that's another way to kind of look at it, is if we're going to allow them to put it up whenever they want to, but they need to look a certain way, have
So-
certain performance standards attached to them, so that they're.
Because we even talked about this thing about when you got into the types, and then we didn't realize all these different types of signs now. The feather signs and all of that stuff. It can look. Maybe everybody doesn't respect some type of uniformity or just having things neat or whatever. But when you get a lot of that aggregated in a commercial area. Specifically, you can tell we need some order to this situation. And, some of those feather signs that people use, and I mean, that stuff is all over the place, right?
A lot of them are small businesses. You see tree cutting, pressure washing, you see all these little signs. They're not in front of their business, they're just, businesses that are trying to advertise.
Which I think, that's important.
Yeah.
Because we have to promote the business, the economic aspect of this thing, and especially for small businesses who cannot necessarily erect a sign that, costs thousands and thousands of dollars, what have you, but it still needs to have some parameters.
I mean, how many do we allow,
Yeah.
10 in DSD, or, what's the number, or, how long can they be there?
Right, they just end up in the median or in the road and.
VDOT usually collects them if they're in there right away.
So our ordinance says that, you can have what we call bandit signs, no more than 1 square foot, to be located on your property, and they are exempt from permits. They don't need a permit. There's no limit on the number. They just can't be in the right of way, because it obviously presents safety hazards, whether it's visibility or, obstruction, that kind of thing. So typically, if we find those little bandit signs scattered around the county, and it's visual clutter as well. It's injurious to community character, we will pick them up. Typically, we will call, if it's your first time offense, we'll call you and tell you where you can find your sign, but after that, it's gotten to be such an issue now that, I mean, we had the code enforcement officer call me the other day and tell me she picked up 49 signs one day. So. That being said, banner signs, some of the regulations I saw elsewhere, if you were allowed to put them up, for example, and there weren't any permits required and there weren't any time limits on them, they were typically limited to like 24 square feet, They couldn't be they couldn't be made out of like a permanent material, they had to be fabric or canvas. They had to be on 2 poles measuring a certain diameter and a certain height. And you are limited to 1 per property. So that kind of cuts down on the number. And not everybody is going to use them. For example, like at shopping centers, of course, would be limited to no more than 1 or 2. Of course, right now, they're limited to, I think, 2 flag signs at any one time for any of their businesses. So those are just some things to think about, the ways to kind of control it, allow them to occur, but at the same time, you know, put some kind of standards and performance criteria to keep them from looking so junky, basically.
Like election signs?
Election signs. I know before we changed the ordinance several years ago, we just didn't allow temporary signage unless you were within a grand opening period. Usually it's 30 days of you opening or closing. We would allow them, you know, pennants and balloons and that kind of thing. That part is still in the ordinance, but then it got expanded to start allowing flag signs and banners as well.
When you looked at York County, what were the plus and takeaways of that?
So York County, let me pull up the table real quick. York County. Okay. So York County is a lot like us. They have overlay districts where they have stricter performance criteria, kind of like the Highway Corridor Overlay District or the Newport Development Service Overlay District, and they have a pretty substantial historic overlay district, as you would guess. For their freestanding sign, for example, they allow between 40 and 64 square feet. For a monument-style sign, currently our maximum sign size is 50 square feet. They do allow between a 12 to 50 square foot for a pole-type sign. They allow a freestanding sign to be up to 10 feet tall. The maximum height for us is 8 feet. They allow for a 20-foot tall pole sign, where ours is obviously limited to 8 feet depending on how far away you are from the road. They do allow for 1 sign per parcel, except for corner or through lots where you're allowed to have 1 per street frontage. Right now, our ordinance allows you just to have the 1 freestanding sign. So that's something that we could expand on, for example, so that you could have 1 monument-style sign or 1 pole sign per street frontage. And they do have special sign standards for their overlay districts, which would dictate colors and maybe materials and that kind of thing. Wall signs, their limit was 1 square foot per linear feet of a principal building width. We have 10 square feet, 10% of the wall area, or 200 square feet, whichever is less, for a wall sign. They do allow temporary signs up to 40 square feet and 6 feet tall, 1 per frontage in residential districts, R2, and non-residential districts. And they can be installed up to 120 days, so that's 6 months. Shopping center signs, they allow up to 150 square feet or 200 square feet cumulative, 10 feet tall, 1 per frontage, but no special requirements outside of the special overlay districts for materials and colors. So similar to us, a little bit larger and taller, but and I did put the links in that table if you want to go back and read some more. Have trouble falling asleep, you can read the sign ordinances while you're putting yourself to sleep. All right. So the next set of proposed changes to the sign ordinance is clarification, what we mean by building, the side of the building with road frontage. Typically, when I say you get 1 wall sign on the side of the building with road frontage. Some people think that if you can see from the side of the building, from the front of the road, that should be road frontage, but they don't understand that you're installing the sign on the frontage of the road. You're not installing it on the sides of the building, even though you can see it from the road. That's not your road frontage. So I'm just trying to make that as clear as I can so people are understanding that. And this is actually spelled out in a couple of different places. I think in Williamsburg, they actually were very specific when they said, you're limited to a total of one wall sign on a wall fronting a public street. So that makes it even clear that you're limited to that wall sign on the side of the building that is facing the public street. So that's just a clarification that I'm trying to make here. It's not really changing anything. I'm just changing the language so it's more clear to the reader
Right.
what the intent of the ordinance is.
Which is important.
Yes.
It's very important. In your research and surveying these other locales, I don't know how you did it, but did you talk to anyone just and ask them, say, hey, how do you guys actually enforce these signs?
I haven't actually talked to anybody about sign enforcement. This was pretty much online
Okay,
research, yeah.
okay. I mean,
That would be a
it
good
might-
question
yeah.
to put out there, yeah.
Because other people might be facing the same challenge.
I think staffing is everywhere.
Yeah.
I think it would be easy just to outsource the whole thing, increase the amount for signs for the permit, and just outsource it to defray some of the costs.
So this next set of revisions has to do with our frustration with our ordinance being specific about the types of materials you can use for signs. Apparently, HDU and some of the other specific requirements here are kind of outdated because the technology that goes into making signs is changing. The types of materials that you can use to make a sign are changing. Even you can have decent looking metal signs now. So rather than try and impose maybe an outdated standard on modern sign manufacturing, we were like, okay, well, what is it that we don't want to see? For example, plywood. So, spray painted signs on a piece of plywood stuck between two poles. So we said signs made from plywood are prohibited. So we just kind of struck the language about what kind of particular material we wanted to see and put something here we definitely didn't want to see. And then the other change that we are proposing, it doesn't have to be exactly this. However, one of the things that we hear from sign manufacturers or sign companies is, can you please give me specific colors you want to see? Right now, our ordinance says that color schemes are supposed to be subtle and earth tone and historic in nature, and that means so many different things to so many different people. And so we find ourselves in these kind of arguments back and forth with people about what we mean by earth tone. Like somebody's idea of earth tone may not match what Bobby's idea of earth tone is. So even if you go to Wikipedia, I mean, they give you a nice palette of what earth tones are that some of us didn't agree with. However, so we were like, well, why can't we just pick a fan deck from a particular paint company that's widely used and widely known and recognized as being historic, subtle, or earth tone in nature, and they just have to tell us which color that they want to use or which colors that they want to use and have enough variety that it's not too restrictive on somebody's style. And of course, you would still be able to use your individual logo as part of your sign that didn't have that wasn't part of the approved palette. However, the background of the sign and the letters and that kind of thing would still have to be taken from the pre-approved palette. And so we put in there, one of the popular ones that we saw was the Benjamin Moore Williamsburg color palette, which has 144 colors in it. We could add more palettes in here if you all have other ideas of, fan decks that people tend to like or prefer. This was one that I found in obviously the Williamsburg. And this was one of the ones that was actually mentioned by one of our sign companies as an example to use. So, other than that,
With the Williamsburg color palette, is there a way to word it to where they're not restricted? I mean, I get that there's 144 colors, but I know that the Williamsburg color palette could also be more expensive. So if there was like a, I don't know, if somebody did a similar color that was on a more generic, level, do they have the ability to swap out, okay, it's not a Williamsburg color,
Right.
but it's still in the same color family?
Yeah, we could do that.
Well, I think, yeah, any manufacturer could match that color, I would hope, such as Sherwin-Williams or.
Right, Sherwin-Williams is another one. And we could say such as the Benjamin Moore Williamsburg color palette, or the Sherwin-Williams, or the Benjamin Moore color
Equivalent,
palette.
yeah.
Or one that closely approximates the,
And as popular as that Williamsburg color palette is, most manufacturers are doing something that would duplicate that because they're gonna be able to sell paint in that same color, so, and that's kind of.
So for the case where you have a trademark logo, like for example, 7-Eleven or Bojangles, they can use the colors in their logo and not be concerned with matching the Williamsburg colors.
right, so
Okay.
the logo
Well,
itself.
just trademarked.
Right, exactly.
There are some national companies that do, in some cases, alter colors, I think a little bit in some of their logos to kind of blend. I think it's kind of rare, like Starbucks is Starbucks. You're gonna get that logo wherever you go, so. Because it's their trademark, it's their thing that you recognize. You don't even have to see the name and you know what it is, so.
Like Harris Teeter, I've seen, they have the red Harris Teeter lettering. I've seen them like tone it down to where it's more of a darkety burgundy kind of type color as well.
Yeah, I was in Chesapeake the other day. That's another interesting place when it comes to signs. And I looked over there at this building. It was a brick building, red brick building, and it was a McDonald's. And I said, that building looks nothing like a McDonald's at all. And the signage, the only reason I really knew that it was a McDonald's was because of the Golden Arch.
And the drive-through that you went through.
I didn't go. I don't go to McDonald's. You don't have to deal with what I have to deal with.
Sorry.
I go to Ringo's.
I believe that was the only changes that we had proposed. Well, I take that back. There was one more, shopping centers. One of the other things that we heard from shopping center owners and businesses that are locating in the shopping centers as well as sign manufacturers is that they felt like 50 square feet was too small for a master plan monument style sign that had everybody's names and blades in them. So they requested up to 80 feet. I did do a random search using ChatGPT, and I said, what is the average freestanding monument style sign for a shopping center in Virginia? And it spat 80 feet at me. And we were able to find that, I believe it was Newport News that had the 80 square foot.
Just put a Y on 80 instead of 8.
Oh, 8 square feet. So we cut it down.
I think sometimes we talk about the sign being too small and what have you. That's a traffic hazard too. But some signs can be too big, for the businesses. I mean,
Like trailers? We didn't add trailers in here, did we?
No, I couldn't find anybody who allowed signs on trailers except for, I believe Surrey County allowed it.
We allow it, right?
I know where he moved them to, though. I saw him this weekend at Outer Banks.
but what are those illuminated signs that you see sometimes? I think like during 4th of July or something that might be pointing to some fireworks or something for sale. But aren't they kind of like signs on trailers as well? I mean, they're
Those
temporary.
Changeable copy signs?
What?
Changeable copy signs that have they're like the A-frame signs, but you wheel them out and you have the changeable copy. You could put sales and stuff on.
Yeah, right. Because in the background is illuminated. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so they, the ones that we have for the temporary fireworks displays are permitted as temporary
Okay.
vendors or itinerant merchants under the zoning ordinance.
Right, right.
And they go away after a certain number of days. So,
As far as lighting, I didn't see anything specific in here. I guess some signs have internal lighting or
Yes.
external.
That
That
is it, yeah.
seems to be okay. I guess in the survey, there was a question about, responses were about flashing signs,
Yes.
flashing lights, and also digital lights. So I don't see anything in here prohibiting those, or
Right.
I don't think we'd want flashing lights.
right, so the, one thing that we do prohibit in the ordinance are, changing digital displays over a certain number of times per minute.
Mm.
Like they have to slow their rate down, and they can't have moving or the appearance of moving. They can only change their sign, message every.
So
what
that
you're
is,
saying.
that is in here?
Yes.
No crawls, no crawling, verbiage. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, hold on just a second, let me get to it here.
Because town of Smithfield, I don't think the town of Smithfield allows any,
No motion.
yeah, no motion, yeah. No.
Well, that's a big sign they just put up on Church Street.
Well, I'm trying to find my prohibited sign section here.
Like, the sign that's at, First Gravel Hill and, Mount Nebo and Campbell's. You can't have that in the,
Right.
town limits. Yeah, yeah.
Somebody did a good job going around selling churches.
Animated signs, is it 15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 16?
So 16 is flashing signs or other signs displaying flashing, scrolling, or intermittent lights
Okay.
or lights of
It's the
changing
other
degrees of intensity. Then we have another section in the ordinance. Okay, any electronic sign that is generated by a series of moving images such as an LED, digital display, or other video technology, whether displayed on a building, vehicle, or mobile unit. And then we actually have electronic sign section. I can find it for you rather than
Okay.
make y'all
And-
sit here while I search for it, but.
That's okay, but it's those type of signs, flashing signs, and they're prohibited in general.
We do, and another part of the ordinance allow digital signs up to 50% of the sign face. But I want to say that there is a,
So that may apply to like a gas station that has their prices digitally.
yes, and there's only a certain like number of times it can move per minute or that kind of thing. They're not allowed to flash or be animated, like having characters or cars or something like that driving around in it. So I did want to point out that there was one locality that I did find that allowed signs on trailers, and that was Surrey for freestanding signs. It says portable signs on wheels, carriages, or on fixed supports shall be considered as freestanding signs and shall be included in any measurement of permitted sign area, whether or not a permit is required.
How many square feet did they allow? 30?
50 square feet in business zones and 100 square feet in industrial zones, one per business.
How did wrapped vehicles, so like, I got a van that's my roofing business, which it rolls around, but then at the end of the night, 4 of them are parked on South Church Street. How do we identify, how do we handle that?
Right, so typically if a business vehicle is used in the normal operational activities of a business, we don't really, they're exempt. However, if they're being parked well within the normal sign setbacks and they're being used to advertise, that's when we say like, hey, you gotta move them to the side or the rear.
Thank you. I didn't know how that worked.
But almost nobody allowed, except for Surrey, signs on trailers. They were expressly prohibited, almost every single one. So So that's all I have for you. I will say that I do have a meeting with Christy and Nicole in Economic Development to kind of go over the proposed revisions, get their feedback. The soonest we could meet was June the 10th. Unfortunately, after tonight's planning commission, but I imagine we will keep talking about this for a little while. So I will report back what I learned from that meeting as well.
Appreciate all your research on this.
Thanks, Edward. Thank you.
Yeah.
If y'all have another locality that you think does a really good job, that you want me to take a look at, then fix that up as well. All right, that's all from me.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ray.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Any other business of the commission tonight? All hearts and minds are clear, nobody's mad but Mr. Ford. Okay. Is there a motion?
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.